once we get that right, which is for me the most important thing, that they have, first of all, respect. The second one is commitment. The third one, passion. Those three ingredients are non-negotiable.
Hello and welcome into the Non-Negotiables podcast. I'm Gavin and I'm here today with Justin. Juz, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good, Gav. How are you?
Good, mate. Good. So today we're going to wrap up the transfer window, and then in the second part we'll do a dive into our Champions League group and what we're going to face there. So we'll start with the window because it's basically closed. I believe Turkey's got another week to go or something, but we're done. Saudi's done. All the big ones are done. So let's start with the ins, Juz, because I think we need to take these in two different parts. I think we need to do an ins and an outs, because to me, it's almost like two different windows, right? Like I think it's going to be a completely different grade for both of them. So let's start with the ins. So incoming, we had Declan Rice for 105 million. We had Havertz for 65 million, Timber for 35 million, and then David Raya for 3 million plus 27 at the end of the year if it becomes permanent. I think we all expect it to become permanent. I think that basically it was done this way to get around FFP. I don't see anything other than a permanent transfer at the end. Just how are you rating this window just from an incoming perspective?
Gav, I think I got to give it a solid A. Honestly, I think we addressed all our troublesome positions. Well, we addressed every position, really. And I don't know. I mean, I have questions about Havertz, which, kind of makes me a little nervous. But I mean, Rice has been brilliant. And I do think, as I've said on this pod before, that Raya is a little better goalkeeper than Ramsdale, just a little bit. And, I mean, honestly, the only thing keeping it from an A+ is Timber's ACL injury to me. So I like the window. I like the incomings. I'm pulling for Havertz. I don't want to trash him, but I've just not been impressed yet. But yeah, a solid A for me.
Yeah, I think any window where you sign Declan Rice is immediately an A. I think that is basically the base point at that point. I think he's such a seismic signing, and you've already seen how good he is. So I think it has to be an A, and the rest around it are what kind of bump it up. The Timber injury is very, very unfortunate, because I think I agree. It was an A++ window until that point for incomings. We had done everything that we needed to do. I think you're right on Havertz. That's the big question mark of the window, right? For an incoming, because I don't know anyone other than maybe Arteta and Edu that doesn't think that at the very least we massively overpaid. I think it's probably double what we should have been paying for him. It's another Chelsea player. It's not a transfer that I would have done. And the start has been underwhelming. I think if he comes good, though, Juz, if he ends up with 12 league goals this season and, a really good contributor, does that push it back up to an A+, even knowing what we know with a Timber injury?
Man, Gav, I don't know. I mean, this is a really tough one for me because I think we already had two very good players in Emile Smith-Rowe and Vieira who could have played that position, and we could have put 65 million anywhere else. I think that's kind of my only hang up on it.
I want to bring something up there, though, Juz, because I'm not sure I agree with you that either of those players can play that position. Right? I'm just not sure I believe it.
Are you sure Havertz can?
I think Havertz can do half of it. I don't know if he can do the other half. And I am the same with Fabio Vieira and Smith-Rowe, right? They're just the other half. I don't think that Fabio Vieira or Smith-Rowe can do the off-the-ball work and the pressing work and the target man work that Kai Havertz can do. I don't know that Kai Havertz can do the creative work that Fabio Vieira does, and I don't know he can do the goal scoring that Emil Smith-Rowe can do. I kind of think we've got 3 players that could add up to one player that would be perfect for that position. That's how I feel about it.
I agree with that 100%. Those 3 together would be like the perfect player for that left 8, right? But they're 3 separate players, and Kai, excuse me, and Kai is still only 1/3 of that. I would have still rather seen Vieira or Smith-Rowe, either one, put into that left 8 role. And put the 65 million to something else, like a striker or anything else.
Yeah, I think with Fabio Vieira and Smith-Rowe, my only thing is this. With Fabio Vieira and Smith-Rowe, I don't think there's any chance at all of either of them developing the kind of skills that Havertz has. I do think there's a chance that Havertz could develop the kind of skills that they have, simply because from all I've heard and not seen, but from all I've heard, Havertz was that player at Leverkusen. That is my only thing. Is there more to come from Havertz that we haven't seen going forward? Because I don't believe there's more to come from Vieira or Smith-Rowe defensively, target man-wise. At the end of the day, neither of them are going to just become good in the air and start winning balls in the air. And pressing-wise, I just don't think they're ever going to be that sort of player. Whereas I think with Havertz, there is, I'm not saying it's a good chance, but maybe there's a little chance that he could recreate that Leverkusen stuff and become a bit more assured again in front of goal, or be a little bit more creative.
It's kind of a tough one because, you're obviously right. Smith-Rowe and Vieira aren't going to suddenly grow to be 6'3", dominant in the air. That's just, it's not going to happen. And I think there is something attractive in Havertz's physical abilities that they're not going to be able to attain. That goes into strategy for Arteta. All that being said, though, do you not think both of those other players? Well, I know you're not a big Vieira guy, but let's isolate Smith-Rowe for a second. Do you not think that even if he's not the physical specimen that Havertz is, that he doesn't give more than Havertz has so far?
I think he'd have scored at least 2 goals by now. That I will say. I do think he would have scored 2 goals by now, but I do think the structure of the team would suffer with him in there instead of Havertz. So I don't know. It's about, I guess it's about what you prefer. You're giving something up with any one of them. And I think, and by the way, I'm not disagreeing with you here. I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate, and I'm looking at it from a different view. I would prefer to see Smith-Rowe starting there. I would like to see 5 games of Smith-Rowe there and see where it goes. I don't really think that Fabio Vieira is even in the slightest bit capable of playing that role. I think Fabio Vieira is a lot more comfortable in Ødegaard's role. When we've seen Vieira with these cameos off the bench, it's been in very specific circumstances. It hasn't been from the start. It's been when we've been chasing a goal, so it's not the same. He's not playing the same role when he comes on that Havertz has been playing when he comes off. That is just the way it is. So I don't think Fabio Vieira is suited to that role at all. I think he's a lot more suited to the Ødegaard role, and obviously I don't think he's a 10th of the player that Ødegaard is, but I think he's more suited to that role, which is a little bit more creative, a lot less physical. I think we can say Ødegaard's role is to the left 8. The left 8 is the one that's supposed to be crashing the box, getting in at the back post. He's the one that's supposed to be. And I don't really understand why we've moved away from Ødegaard leading the press and going to Havertz leading the press. I'm not really sure why. I don't know why there can't be a better way of working that, because I don't think that that's really clicked yet. But I just don't think that Vieira is capable of doing that stuff. Smith-Rowe, we're going to have to see what happens with him. We'll get onto this in the sales, because I'll be honest with you, I think we should have sold him this summer. I think it's a massive mistake.
I'm ready to yell about it if you want.
Well, Well, let's just do the other incomings first. So let's move off of Havertz, and we'll get onto Raya real quick. I think Raya becomes the number one very, very shortly. I don't think Ramsdale's looked particularly good so far this season. I don't know why he hasn't looked good this season. I think the last couple of games in particular, United and Fulham, I think he's looked shaky with a ball at his feet, which he never did before. I don't know if it's the pressure of Raya being there or what, but and I don't know if it's that he's being told to go longer a lot more, but he just seems to be getting rid of the ball long a lot quickly, or just be too hesitant on the ball.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's both a combination of Raya being there and then the significant amount of expectation that's on the team this year. We were never supposed to be title contenders last year. I mean, and if you called it, I mean, good for you, but I mean, I never expected that. And we ended up being in first place for most of the season, blew it at the end. But there's an expectation this year now that is, I'm sure, weighing on a lot of these players. And I think it's most evident in Ramsdale than anybody else. Maybe Saka as well. I feel like I see it in Saka as well. But Ramsdale especially. I do agree with you. I think Raya is going to eventually replace him in the league. I don't know how far that's going to go, if it's going to go league and Champions League, and Ramsdale's just a domestic cup keeper at that point. I don't think it's going to get that bad for him, but I think Raya's up for a start, maybe right after this international break.
I don't think it's long coming, and let's be fair. If the gains on all this stuff is going to be marginal, right? But these small gains make a really, really big difference to the team overall. So I get why they spent all the money on Raya, and by doing that, I think you're absolutely right. I looked at it first off, and I'm like, oh well, it's a loan, so that's good for Ramsdale. I'm not sure that's the case. I don't think this is really a loan. I think it's a loan on paper, but it's permanent. It really is it's 30 million permanent transfer.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so as well. This was just done for like FFP reasoning for both clubs. I think, I think Raya's going to be the new number one eventually.
Yeah. Declan Rice, obviously a record signing, 105 million. I don't mean there's really much to add on this, right? I mean, he's been fantastic from the start. I think you're already seeing his game grow right in front of your eyes. It's the best 105 million that anyone's ever spent. It sounds mad to say 105 million's a bargain, but when you look at what Caicedo and players like that have gone for, Rice is head and shoulders above them players. We basically stole him.
Mate, I am totally comfortable with the 105 million we spent on Declan Rice. I think it's we talked about it on this pod. He was the no chance transfer target, right? Like, I mean, he was going to succeed no matter what, and he's doing that. He's adding some leadership characteristics, all the stuff that like Xhaka had done on field, at least. We don't get to see off field. And no, I think this transfer has been nothing but a success, and I have no problem with the 105 million spent.
And Timber, it's just unfortunate that he got injured. Nothing anyone can do about that. He was looking absolutely fantastic. I think he would already be the first choice right back with Zinchenko back in at left back if he was fit at this point. I think long term he's going to be a huge success. I have no doubt about it, providing he comes back from that injury without any long term problems, which these days you should be able to come back from that. I think it's one obviously that we're going to have to kick the can down the road on judging for another year. But in my mind, I just think that's a great signing.
I'm a bit heartbroken on this one because he was, I think me and Paz both called him to be like when we did our player preview, we called him to be like the signing of the season, basically. And this injury is just such unfortunate timing. And I think he did really good in preseason. He's versatile. He's smart. but he's still young to improve. It's just, I mean, it's just such bad timing, and it does make me question our defensive depth now, because I think he was such a plug and play player that now I worry that whatever we do is going to drastically change the way we play.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what more can you say? That's kind of all there really is on it. It was just unfortunate, such bad timing, because I think he would have just been such a valuable player for us this year. So, all right, let's get on to the outs then. So the players that went, we have Following Balogun on 35 plus 5 with a 17.5% sell-on fee. Granit Xhaka left for around about 20 million. Matt Turner for 7 plus 3. Pablo Marie for 6 in a deal that was actually done last year before he went on loan. It just become permanent when his club, Monza, stayed up. Austin Trusty to Sheffield United for 5 million. Holding to Luton for 1 million plus another 3 if targets are hit. Then the loan deals, Tierney, Tavares, Sambi, Marquinhos and Runarsson all out on loan. We know we got a 1.5 million loan fee for Tierney. No options in that. We know there was a 3 million loan fee for Tavares with, I believe, a 10 million option to buy at the end of the season, which I think there is a chance that they actually, if they stay up, I think they probably do pull the trigger on that. I think that might be a little bit like us with Raya too. There could be a little bit of FFP there because Forest have bought another 107 players this summer.
Yeah.
Sambi, we just got to hope that he performs a little bit and we can move him on next summer. Marquinhos and Runarsson, whatever. Ashley Maitland-Niles went on a free, and Pepe yesterday moved to Trabzonspor. I've been hearing a lot of conflicting things on this, and nobody that I trust has said anything on it. So I've heard that we got a 3 million fee. I've heard that it was a free transfer, and I've heard that we cancelled his contract, paid him off, and then he went there. I guess that will probably come out over the next few weeks, but so far I've heard all 3 rumours and none of them from anybody I trust. I haven't heard anything from Ornstein. I haven't heard anything from Charles Watts. I haven't heard anything on the fee from anybody that I would trust. So let's look at these outs that actually went, Juz. I know a lot of people were upset at the price for Balogun, but I think that's a pretty good price considering where he went to. We didn't sell him to Chelsea or Man United or Man City. Those clubs just, I don't know if Chelsea ever tabled a bid. I'm going to guess they didn't. I just think that's about as good a price as you could expect.
Yeah, I would definitely. I mean, I don't know how you feel, Gav. We haven't talked about this previously, but I would take a lower fee to sell him abroad than to
I wouldn't.
sell him.
I wouldn't, because I don't think he's that good, is my honest opinion. So if Chelsea were offering 45 million instead of 35 million, I would have taken the money from Chelsea and let him go look like Nico Jackson there.
But if he looks great, we have 17.5% sell-on clause. If he turns into, because we all know what the striker market looks like in 2-3 years in Monaco.
He's going to end up at Chelsea anyway if he ends up good.
All right, Gav, just,
Well, don't you think though? I mean, if he ends up good at Monaco, it's almost certain that he ends up back in the Premier League one way or another.
I mean, probably, but then at that point, Monaco will be getting 100 million from Chelsea, and then we'll be getting 17.5 million from that.
Okay, so I don't think we would, right? And this is why, because I think these sell-on fees are usually on the profit. So we wouldn't get 17.5% of 100 million. We'd get 17.5% of 60 million. So we'd be more likely to receive kind of half of that ish.
Yeah, but are add-ons included in that? Or
if they are exercised, and if he turns out being good, then the add-ons are going to be exercised.
I like the deal we did. I do. I like it. I mean, I think we held on to him. I mean, when did he go to Monaco? It was like a day before deadline day.
Yeah.
Nobody else was coming in with legitimate offers.
I 100% agree with you. I don't think the offers were there to go anywhere else. I'm just saying that had the offer have been there, personally, I would take the extra money and sell him to the Premier League. I wouldn't have had any qualms about that whatsoever. But I'm with you. I don't think the offers were there. I think Monaco was the offer on the table, and that was it.
Yeah, and sorry, I'm not trying to be argumentative. I just, me personally, I would have sold him in the Premier League, but not to Chelsea. I mean, just personally, fuck Chelsea.
Yeah, I get that, and I wouldn't be buying anyone from Chelsea either. I have to say, but I just, I think it's about time that we started selling Chelsea players we don't want, rather than us buying players they don't want.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. I'm not convinced we didn't want Balogun. I think there was a lot at play here. I think if he would have been willing to stay as the second choice, we probably would have kept him.
I get that, but look at the work that Arteta put in to convince Xhaka to stay when he first got here, right? Now, they went on that US tour, and whether he was carrying a knock or not, he was training away from the group. There was no effort made to integrate him into this squad. Now, could it be that they were just resigned to the fact that he was going? Yeah, possibly, maybe. But to me, that says more, knowing how we know Mikel Arteta, that says more to me that Arteta really just didn't fancy him and thinks Eddie's a better player.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely possible. It could also be he was the only player we expected to get, a decent transfer fee from, or it could be that he was actually carrying an injury. It's really hard for us to say.
Yeah, of course, we're not inside, so we don't know that. But the next deal, Granit Xhaka, 20 million. I think we sold a 50 million player for half price. I also think we sold our best left-sided 8, even with the way this team is constructed now. I think Granit Xhaka is a better player than Kai Havertz. Shoot me, I don't care. I think this is a really poor deal on the face of it, but I think for Granit Xhaka wanting to go for everything he's done and that, I'm okay with it, even if I'm not exactly doing cartwheels about it.
Yeah, I definitely think this was a case of, of doing a favor for the player. He'd been so loyal for so long. He wanted to leave previously 2 years prior when Mikel Arteta joined. Yeah, I don't have any problem with this deal. It's more money than I thought we were going to end up getting because I think everybody knew he was pretty much ready to move on. It's a weird one though, isn't it, Gav? Because on face value, well, you actually probably would disagree with me on this, but on face value, I don't think Xhaka's worth that much. But to Arsenal, he's worth a lot. I mean, he's one of our most important players. I
would disagree with that, but then I've got a higher opinion of Xhaka than most people. I think he's an absolutely fantastic footballer. I think most sides in the world would be improved with Granit Xhaka being put into him. I think he's got, with the way his fitness is and the way he looks after himself, I think he's got 4 more years of playing at the very, very top level. But I'm going to contradict myself because after we've gone through these, I'm going to tell you what I think about what we've done with people like Emil Smith-Rowe and why I think there's a mistake in selling too late. So, which way do you go on it? I just think we've kind of, with Xhaka, I think we've let him go to acquiesce to his own demands, which is fine. But I think we've also done it for half price. And that is kind of the complete opposite of the way I think you should do it. Wenger always used to sell players 1 year too early, but we used to get top dollar for them. Whereas I think what we've done here with Xhaka is we've sold him too early and we've sold him at a discount.
Wait, he's not a 40 million player at his age. And
I completely disagree. I'm just watching people like James Ward-Prowse go for 30 million quid. So I completely disagree. I think he's not a 40 million player in 2012. I think he's absolutely a 40 million player in 2023, looking at these transfer fees. I mean, Lavia went for what, 50 million? He's probably going to play 10 Premier League games for Chelsea before he goes on loan to Lovren and we never see him again.
It's about the chance that they get better. I mean, honestly, I would have traded No, I'm not going to say that. I don't want to fight, Gav. I don't want to fight. But I don't think that he was worth that much. I mean, 30 million peak is what I'd give Xhaka as a 30-year-old, 1 year left on his contract. Come on, mate.
He had an option for a second one, so really he had 2 years. And we're going to get into this with Rob Holding as well, because I think the Rob Holding sale is absolutely egregious. I think it's criminal, the Rob Holding sale. Yeah, we'll get into that in a minute. Okay, move on from that one. Matt Turner, 7+3, good deal. Let us bring Raya in, gets him a chance to play, although they've just brought in another goalkeeper, so he might find himself on the bench again, but not our problem. Good sale?
Yeah, I'm good with this one.
Yeah, me too.
No problem. I think Turner was a solid deputy, made me nervous a few times, but overall he tended to improve after the beginning. I like the amount of money. It was great. He got a little I don't know what would you call it, like Premier League buzz for being here. That's going to help his career. I'm good with it. I think overall it works for all parties, right?
Yeah, I think so. Pablo Mari, 6 million, whatever deal was done last year. He should never have been bought in the first place. It was a disaster of a signing. Just go away.
Yeah, I think we ended up actually profiting on this one, even if it's less than $1 million, because the loan fees we got on top of his sell. I think we bought him for what, 8 million, right?
I don't remember. Whatever it was that amount too much.
Anyways, this one's fine. I'm fine with the player moving on. I don't really have a I understand the tough spot Mikel and Edu were in the January we bought them. It's fine. I'm happy to see the back of him after that Chelsea game, and yeah, it's fine.
Trusty, 5 minutes, Sheffield United, another one that's absolutely fine. Yeah. I mean, it's a bit lower than I thought it would be, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Now, Rob Holding, 1+3. I think this sale is an absolute disgrace. He's a 27-year-old English defender. He is better than Davinson Sanchez, who Spurs just got 13 million quid for. And both things can be true here. First off, I think he should have been sold the year after we bought him, because he was never good enough for Arsenal. And also, he's a good lower Premier League defender that you should be recouping a decent fee on. 1+3 is absolutely ludicrous. I do not understand it. I don't understand how you aren't able to get at least 10 million from him out of any English Premier League team, really. I do not understand this deal. I think it's an awful, awful deal.
I'm shocked about this one as well, to be honest. I do wonder if this was kind of another thing for the benefit of the player. Like, we did Rob a favor. But at the same time, I am shocked that more clubs weren't in for him. I was chatting with I'm in a group chat with a Spurs supporter and a Liverpool supporter. And it just came to my knowledge that Rob Holding is actually kind of hated in the league. And I had no idea. I was like, how could anybody hate him? But it's just really interesting, I think, to think about how we think about a player versus how, other clubs think about a player. But no matter what, I think this fee is criminal. He's good enough to play for several Premier League clubs, just not a possession-based one. And I'm not happy about this at all.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the loans are just the loans, right? We were surprised that we weren't able to get Tierney out on a full-time basis. I think there is a huge gap between what Arsenal fans think Kieran Tierney is and what Kieran Tierney is. I think
what Arsenal fans think and what Gavin thinks Kieran Tierney is.
Yeah, I mean, it was showed by the fact there was no market for him, right? I mean, and there is a little bit of a reasoning behind it. You are right. The Premier League is skewing towards buying younger players, that's for sure. I don't buy that everyone's playing with an inverted fullback. I think maybe 30% of clubs are trying to do it, but that's not all from the left. It's from the right as well. Newcastle certainly aren't playing with Dan Burn moving into midfield like Zinchenko. So I don't buy any of that stuff at all. I do think we should have been able to sell him and Tavares. Tavares was a little bit different case because we had agreed a fee with Nottingham Forest, and then he didn't agree personal terms, which was a disappointment. And the rest of them, they kind of just are what they are. Pepe, I think we all expected Pepe's contract to be cancelled. If it turns out it's not, I think that's a win. There's two players that I want to bring up here that change what I grade this window as, right? First off, this window is no better than a D for selling players, I think, from my point of view. Where would you give it from the business has actually been done, Juz?
Yeah, I'd probably agree. A D. We didn't get prices for anybody I thought we would. Even Balogun, the deal I'm mostly happy with that brought in the most money, I still thought we'd have gotten at least 40 guaranteed. So yeah, D.
And I think in these days of clubs actually trying to adhere by FFP, it becomes more important that you do get decent fees for your players. So the two players I want to bring up are Emil Smith-Rowe and Thomas Partey, both of who I think should have been sold this summer. And I think we're going to pay the price for selling neither of them. I think Thomas Partey is going to be basically worthless next summer. He'll have 1 year left on his deal. He's on huge wages. He's already injured again. We had gone out and replaced him at the start of the summer with Declan Rice. And then it kind of seems to me we almost bottled getting rid of him, which should have been done. How do you feel about that with Partey? There was interest in him. There was interest in him from a few places. I think it's one that had we pushed, we could have probably pushed up towards 30 or 40 million. And I think we should have done that. And I think he should have gone.
This one's a bit of a tough one for me. Party. I mean, I would have gladly accepted the fee. He's had injury issues since the beginning.
And he's injured right now. And he's going to the African Cup of Nations in January. So he's going to miss around about a month now, then another month in January. You're already taking 2 months out of the season without whatever other injuries he picks up.
If Ghana qualify, which
I think they qualified yesterday, I believe.
Oh, did they?
Someone texted me and said that they'd qualified yesterday, yeah.
Okay. Well, I do think that there would have been a lot of churn in midfield had we let him go. And I'm glad he's kind of there to oversee this.
From the treatment table, just looking out the window at everyone playing while he sits there with an ice pack on his legs.
I don't. Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's fair. Yeah. Availability is a big issue with Partey. But when he is fit, he can be one of the best midfielders in the Premier League. And this is why I say I'm torn, because Rice looked like he was struggling a little bit in preseason in that lone six. And I think there's a level of comfort there for having Partey being able to fill in at 6 and moving Declan to the 8, or Partey at the 8, or Partey at right back. I know he's only going to give us 23 games this season or so, 25. But I do think there's a level of comfort there. And if we could have gotten like Lavia, I would have been fine to let him go. But I think overall, I know he's going to be worthless. I do. This isn't really a question of transfer fee. I mean, next summer, he's worthless. But I think there's going to be quite a bit of benefit to keeping him this year.
I just don't think it was necessary. With Rice, Jorginho, and even at a push, the ghost of Mohamed El Neni, I just don't think it was. I don't think it was necessary to keep him, and I think it was a mistake. And I think the next player, we're pushed for time, so I want to push this on because I know you're going to want to say on this. The next one is Emil Smith-Rowe. I don't see him playing any real part at all this season. I think he's going to sit on the bench and not be used. I think we're going to get to the end of the season. It's going to be another player that we've destroyed their transfer value by making it very clear we don't want. And I think he's going to go. And my bet with you now is that we get less than 20 million for him next summer. That is my feeling. I think we should have sold him this summer. I think we still could have got 30 million-ish for him this summer. I don't think we'll get that next summer. I just think this is a monumental error for a player that Mikel Arteta clearly does not want to use.
Gav, this one's an emotional one for me. I love Emil Smith-Rowe. He's probably my favorite current player. That being said, trying to take emotion out of it, if Mikel's not going to play him, we should have sold him this summer. I agree. I still think there's more talent in there than there is in Kai Havertz, than there is in Trossard. But again, I mean, I'm biased. I hate that this situation is going on. I think it's ridiculous. We shouldn't have bought Kai, in my opinion. But I agree with you. If Mikel's not going to play him, and it doesn't look like he hasn't got a single minute over 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then we should have sold him. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to point out here as well for everybody saying, well, when we come back, there's Champions League games to play in that. Man, if you think Mikel is going to suddenly start making 5 changes between Champions League games and league games, then I don't know what you've been watching for the last 3 or 4 years. The team is not going to change. There may be 1 or 2 changes. It will be the 1 or 2 changes that you already know about. You might see Tomiyasu come in for White every now and again. You might see Trossard come in for Martinelli or for Jesus. Every now and again, you might see Nketiah get in the odd game. That is it. You are not going to see us go into a league game with 5 changes.
I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah, and I think the people like myself that are still holding on to the fact that, Smith Rowe could become a mainstay are probably a bit delusional. And yes, I'm including myself.
It just, we've just got 3 years now of watching Arteta work. We know that he doesn't like to make subs, right? He'll make his first subs on 74 minutes. And then he'll make the rest of them in the 92nd and 93rd minute to waste time. He doesn't like making subs. He doesn't like change. I think he feels that the players that he trusts can basically change formation when he screams at them to. So I just don't see this. He's not going to rotate like that. He's not what he is. He's not Pep Guardiola changing half of his team.
But damn it, Gav. Emile Smith-Rowe saved his job.
Yeah, I mean, and he thanks he gets to sit and watch every game from a comfy seat in the dugout.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. You're absolutely right about Arteta, though. I mean, he's not going to do wholesale changes. I actually will be curious to see what he does in Champions League because, the Europa is different, right? Like, sure, he doesn't have a great record in Europa, but Europa is different. It's a B competition. Champions League, though, is different. And I am going to be curious to see how much he does kind of tinker with that lineup and the subs and stuff. But my heart and my head both tells me it's not going to be a lot.
No, I think you're just going to see 14 players in the same
14.
rotation. And I think you're going to see 8 of these players play 60 games if they can hold up for it. And he's going to make changes when they're enforced, which is pretty much what he's already doing. He just makes changes when he has to make them.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue. I mean, I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, so failing to sell those 2 players when we could, we obviously are going to have to wait and see what happens next summer. But I think that downgrades it from a D to an F to me. I think this is another really poor selling window.
Selling window, yes, I agree.
But that's why I want to take them as 2 separate parts because I think they're 2 different windows. I've got no problem with the buy-in, but the selling I think is poor.
So we have an A and an F.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and honestly, I think if you asked Mikel or Edu, they'd probably say the same.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll take a break there. We'll come back in the second half and we're going to preview the Champions League and preview the group. So, Juz, I will see you on the other side, everybody. Look forward to speaking with you then.
Sounds good.
Hey guys, just a couple of quick halftime messages for you. Firstly, we'd really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. It really helps us reach a wider audience, particularly on Apple Podcasts. Secondly, we're on all the social media platforms as the NN Pod. We're really trying to build a strong Gooner community. So next time you're on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, look us up, give us a like or a follow, send us a message, interact with other listeners, or just have a look around. Thanks for listening from myself, Paz and Juz. We really appreciate it. Hello, welcome back into the Non-Negotiables podcast. This is part 2. Juz, Champions League back in after, 7 years out of it. Be good to hear the music at the carpet again. Get rid of that awful Europa League follow on Twitter. I enjoyed the day that I clicked on follow on that. Sorry, guys. Hope I don't see you again for an awful long time. So the draw was last week. We got Sevilla, PSV, and Lens. Ironically, Sevilla came out of pot one and are possibly the weakest team in this group. They do have a European pedigree, obviously. They've won the Europa League 117 times. So they have a lot of pedigree in Europe, but just not in this competition. You know, I think they basically, I think they've been in it 8 times and never made it to the quarters or something like that. But in the Champions League, they're strong contenders. What did you think when this group came out of the pot, Juz? I did have someone text me and say your group looks like a Europa League group that got drunk and wandered into the wrong competition.
Yeah, it kind of feels that way, to be honest. I mean, these are all pretty common Europa League teams. I think even Lens is not normally in Europa League. I like the group. I think it's a pretty good group. It favors us. I think all three seem to be two of the three seem to be in pretty poor form. But I'm looking at these PSV results. They are scoring some crazy goals. I mean, they're putting like 4 and 5 past almost every competition they've had.
And they're like, I think they're the toughest team in the group for
they
sure.
will be.
And they're spreading the goals around too. I mean, I think they're top scorers. I think they've scored 9 league goals in 3 games. And I think is it Luke de Jong who's their centre forward, 97-year-old Luke de Jong. I think he's got a couple, and like that's their top scorer. So they're spreading the goals around. Hervin Lozano, the Mexican wingers there, he's been in good form so far this season. You agree with me? You think this is probably the toughest team in the group? They're also first up. We play them at home next week or the week after next.
I think this will be the toughest group. Yeah. Or the toughest game in the group, excuse me. They've got some really good players. You know, when we initially drew, I was like, well, they've lost Xavi Simons, and I think they'll probably be kind of a pushover. But after doing a little more research before this pod, I'm like, wow, this actually, I mean, they're very dangerous and they score a lot. And, you know, I mean, I think this will be an especially special game for Americans because there's a few Americans there as well. Serginho Dest.
I was going to say, I think Dest went there.
Yep. Malik Tillman, who hasn't really broken into the first team, but he's somebody that a lot of Americans have had eyes on for a while, is there. He scored in their last game against Volvic. So I do, though, to answer your question. Sorry, I went off on a tangent. I think this will be the toughest game. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you there. The away game especially is going to be a tough one there.
Yep.
Lens, they're second from bottom in league. Ugh. They've got 1 point from 4 games. There is a little bit of a caveat here in that they've played PSG and Monaco away. They have a pretty highly rated centre forward in Wahi, who was linked strongly with a lot of top Premier League teams. Well, I say top, you know, mid to upper mid-table Premier League teams in the summer. I mean, they're a little bit of an unknown. We played them back in, when was it? 98, I guess, maybe 2000. They had Tony Varai up front. They actually won. That was in the Lyon era. And I think they actually won the title one year with Tony Varai up front. I remember seeing them. I remember going to Wembley. We played them at Wembley once. Probably lost because it was at Wembley. And back then we used to lose at Wembley. But yeah, they're
not anymore, baby.
No, not anymore. But they've been out of it for a long time, and they have a pretty ugly looking kit. Other than that, I'm not really sure what else to say about them.
I think I was just listening to Handbrake Off, and Amy Lawrence was recalling our first game ever in the Champions League was Lens away.
Yeah, that's right. That was 98.
Yeah, so that's really cool, and I think it's very appropriate, you know, to come back in after 7 years and play them. I personally don't know much about their history or anything. I'm looking at the results though, and damn, could you have a harder start to the season? I mean,
Yeah, that's what I'm
yeah,
saying. They've picked up 1 point from four, but there is a
yeah,
caveat there in that they've basically played the best teams in the league.
yeah. So I don't think it's easy for us to judge them by results or their position in the table. I expect this one could be pretty tough, especially away. French support can be hit or miss, but when they hit, they're crazy. Just look at Marseille.
And
Yeah.
the other team in the group, the team drawing out the top part, because they won the Europa League, is Sevilla. They are rock bottom of the league in Spain. They've had 3 defeats from 3. They've conceded 8 goals in those 3 games. Sergio Ramos has just signed back there. They were his first club, and he's gone back there. Apparently, he's taken a massive pay reduction to go back there. Obviously, he's a massive cunt. Eric Lamela, he's there. He's obviously a massive cunt. So there's a strong chance that Sevilla are just a team full of cunts.
I got to be honest, Gav, and you kind of already alluded to this, but despite the fact they came from pot one, I think this is going to be maybe our easiest game. They look in complete disarray. The 58-year-old Sergio Ramos added to the roster doesn't make me feel any differently about it. Even though I think it's a sweet story. Yeah, I don't know. I'm more worried about Law and PSV at this point.
And I think that's fair. I mean, there's a thing to be said, right? Winning knockout competitions, and we know this all too well, right? Because we went on a string of winning FA Cups, and in reality, that doesn't mean you're a good team. We were getting no better really as a team, but we were just winning 7 games to win a knockout competition. I think it's a very different thing. So, you can't. Sevilla won the Europa League. Yeah, fair enough, but I mean, I don't know how big an achievement that really is.
Well, we've never done it, but yeah, I agree. I know exactly what you're talking about.
You get a run of luck, though. Do you know what I mean? Like look at Man United winning the Carling Cup, whatever it is now, last year. I don't think they left Manchester apart from to play like second division teams. So a lot of it is luck of the draw with the cup, and we've got it here too. And we're going to push into this in a minute as well. The draw makes a huge difference.
Oh yeah, mate. I mean, we got really lucky with our draw, I think. 3 solid clubs, but all clubs that we should be able to overcome, especially over 2 legs. I think it's one of the best draws we could have gotten, to be honest. And then keep in mind, these are all close. We're going to go to France, we're going to go to Netherlands, and we're going to go to Spain. All countries right across, the channel. Is it the channel between England?
I do agree with that. The travel for this is definitely nice. I mean, when you consider you could have got someone like Shakhtar, even a Galatasaray. The travel for this, the places we're going to are definitely a lot better. It just, this group though, it just has a feeling to me that it's going to be a slog. Do you know what I mean? I think it's just going to be 3 teams that are going to just dig in and they're going to make it awkward. And I don't know. There's part of me that kind of wishes we'd have got Bayern Munich and then 2 crap teams like, I don't know, Celtic and whoever the crap team was in pot 4. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just, first off, it doesn't feel to me like a Champions League group.
No disrespect to Celtic fans.
Oh, absolute disrespect to Celtic fans. I cannot stand Celtic and they're useless. So yeah, the most disrespect to Celtic fans. But it's just, it feels like this group is just going to be a slog. There's no glamour tie. There's no Barcelona or AC Milan coming to the carpet. And I think AC Milan were in pot 3, I believe, weren't they? So it could definitely have been a worse draw. 100% it could have been a worse draw. But I just look at it and I've got a feeling of like, oh, do you know what I mean?
League. Oh.
Yeah, but not as exciting as League. More like, oh.
No. I know exactly what you mean. It's not the most glamorous draw for sure. But I think the PSV ties could be very interesting. They've been attacking, going for goals. They don't have Ruud van Nistelrooy when we played them last year. Last year? Was it last year? Yeah, it was, right?
I honestly couldn't tell you. I told you I have completely wiped any thoughts of the Europa League from my. You know that bit in Men in Black where Will Smith comes out with that shiny thing and
Yeah,
it
the
flashes
neuralizer.
and you forget it.
He
Yeah,
neuralized you, but
yeah. I have basically done that for the Europa League. I don't even know we were in it.
oh, okay. Well, I think we played them last year. It could have been the year before. Let me know if I'm wrong. But I think they're going to be an exciting tie. I think they're throwing men forward. They're scoring tons of goals. It's not glamorous, but I also remember, was it 0506? No, obviously not. 0607 when they knocked us out.
Yeah, with who was it who shoved someone over in the corner to give that stupid free kick away? I can't even remember now who it was.
Yeah, I can't.
But yeah, it was that was when they had Aurelio Gomez in goal.
Yep.
And
So go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say that was an awful night.
So we have some European history and pedigree. Does that word work here? I don't know, but we have history, and I think it'll be a nice tie. Eindhoven's a nice city. It'll be a good visit, I think. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens.
I think they're fun away trips for everybody, right? I mean, like you said, they're close. They're decent cities to go to. So I think the lads that go away in Europe will probably be reasonably happy with this draw.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, all the locations. I mean, who wouldn't want to go to northern France, Holland, or Spain, Sevilla? I mean, it's awesome. Yeah, the draw is really nice for fans that are willing to travel away, and again, close for the team. Yeah, so win-win.
Yeah. How important do you think winning the group is? Because I think it's massive finishing first over second.
Yeah, I think it's massive too. We have to win this group. I think we've been talking that this is a Europa League group. We've got to win this and set ourselves up best. I'm not expecting us to challenge for the Champions League this year, but I'd love to get quarter or semis. I'd be happy with quarters. First year back after 7 years, but I think with the group we've got to be first in order to avoid. Honestly, though, Gav, if we're being honest, hold on. Let me just break. I want Barca. I want Barcelona. I hope we play them in.
Well, we can smash them later on in the competition. I think
They won't make it.
There's a big difference between the 7 or 8 really good teams in this competition and the rest. I think there's quite a big difference between the best teams and the rest. I think we have to accept that we're one of the best teams in it at this point. And I wouldn't be happy with quarterfinals. I do think we should be contending for it. I think Man City proved last year they were the best team in it. And I think we ran Man City super close over 38 games. So I think if you feel that you can run Man City close, I don't see why you would be scared of any of these other teams. I mean, Real Madrid have got a European Cup hoodoo that I've never seen. They can have a terrible team and somehow still win the Champions League. The year before last when they won it, they should have been pounded in every single round. PSG should have smashed them. Man City should have smashed them. Chelsea should have smashed them. And I mean, not just looking at it on paper. I mean, they literally against Chelsea, they could have been 4-0 down in half an hour, and Man City was no different. But Real Madrid have just got something in this competition. Man City, obviously, we've already said, they're obviously a really good team. Barcelona, I don't think they're what they were, but you can't, count them out. And Bayern Munich are obviously going to be a strong team. But we're in that discussion. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think we're full favourites. I don't think that we can be going into this game. Well, if we get to the quarterfinal, that'll be nice. I just don't think that's the attitude. I think we need to be going in this competition saying, you know what, we can run Man City close. We've just taken United apart, who are in this competition. I think we can win it.
Here's my thought on that. I think that, and we've kind of already discussed that in this episode, I think we have a manager that only trusts about 14 players in his squad, right? We've said that. And I think that's going to continue into the Champions League. So, with it being such a small pool of players to pull from, that he's actually going to trust and not throw on in like the 92nd minute, which is actually, they still get 10 minutes, I guess, this season, since all the added time spent like 11 minutes plus. But I just don't think we can stretch these players' legs to compete for a title challenge with City and a Champions League challenge with City. And that's kind of what makes me land. If we were going to starting players like Vieira, Smith Rowe, wow, I totally forgot his name. The left back, the Polish left back.
Trossard.
Ivior.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree, and I agree with you that I don't think we can do both. Right? I don't think we're going to be winning a double. I think something has got to give, because it's just too many. It's just too many games. Yeah. And I do think a lot of it is going to come down to injuries. We've already got Partey out. We've already got Timber out long term. We've had Jesus already miss a few games. We started the season without Zinchenko. It is going to come down to a bit of luck with injuries, but it always does. Man City were incredibly fortunate with injuries last year. Like, they just got none. And every team has got single points of failure, right? Every team has got players that they can't replace. If you take Haaland or Rodri out of that Man City team, it is a very, very different team. I do feel a little bit like we have more of them, because I think you can say that about Zinchenko. I think you can say that about Declan Rice if Partey isn't there. I think if Partey's fit, you can maybe get away with that. I think you can say that about Bukayo Saka. I think you can say that about Gabriel Jesus. I think you can get by with Eddie up top in a lot of games. I think there's also a lot of games you cannot get by with Eddie up top.
Yeah, I agree completely. I just want to look here real quick. Give me 1 second. So we're fifth in the league right now, despite not having Jesus and Zinchenko, who were massive players for us last season.
But we've also had a very, very nice start fixture-wise. Really,
yeah, that's fair. That's
really, really, we're 2 points behind where we should be. We're 2 points behind where we were if you just took these games from last year and transposed the results. So, I think we are 2 points behind. I'm not unduly worried about that at this stage, because I think we all thought that we weren't going to exactly hit the ground running. There's been a little change of system. Obviously, like you said, we had the injuries as well. So I don't think this is a terrible start, but I do think we're 2 points behind where we should be.
Yeah, it was Fulham, right? Yeah. And it should.
And we'd won that game too. That's the annoying. I don't want to rehash all that stuff. But we'd won that game too, which was quite annoying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still pretty impressed, and I'm honestly thankful for the easy start, considering the amount of players we changed out. I know since Timber's injury, it's not that much, but since we continue to persist with Havertz, I'm glad that we've had some easier fixtures to kind of bed him in. But I think we've got Everton next, and then PSV. Everton away, PSV next before the North London Derby. I think if we're not firing on all cylinders before the NLD, there's probably got to be some changes made.
Yeah, I think we're playing into it though. I don't think we've played particularly badly. I don't think we've been great, but I don't think we've played particularly badly so far.
I feel the same.
That first game against PSV, I quite like that as a first game at home as well, though. Don't you? You get a chance to play possibly the best team other than us in the group. We get them at home. If you can start with a win there, that really does kickstart you. I mean, I always used to feel with these Champions League groups, back in the day when it was, you had better groups really because you had less teams in it. So, you basically had better groups. And I always used to think if you could win 3 of your home games and get a draw away, you're going to go through. I know obviously we're looking, you want to be top. So it's probably going to take 12 to 14 points to finish top. But this is a chance for a really good start.
No, I feel the same way. I'm actually super hyped that that's our first game PSV at home. I think if we get 3 wins there, or 3 points there, we win the group.
And does that mean that means we play PSV away last, right? That's kind of how it works. You get the team home first and then away last, and then they sandwich the ones in the middle. So there's a good chance that by the time we go to PSV, we could have, if not the group wrapped up, we certainly should only need a point there.
Yeah, exactly. So we play PSV on December 12th.
Yeah.
As the last game in the group.
Yeah, exactly.
And we'll, I mean, that'll be a tough game for us, I think. But by then, I hope we already have it wrapped up.
Yeah, it would be nice if we could have it wrapped up, and then we could, talk about how all this rotation is going to work, and then Arteta can put the same 11 out, and then we can come back after and talk about how he should have rotated it, because now we've got 6 injuries from that game.
Yeah, this is probably not going to be a game we see Nwaneri or Skelly or Smith Rowe or Nelson. It's going to be the same group of guys, even if we're leading by 6 points at that point, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, so there is that to it. But I do think I do think it's good to have these games in this order. With the other groups, was there anything that stuck out to you? I mean, the Newcastle group was funny, right? Like I quite enjoyed seeing the Newcastle group come out.
I did too. I mean, they probably have the group of death, wouldn't you say? I mean, it's
absolutely 100%. It is the hardest group that they could possibly have got.
So I'm gonna look at it again real quick.
They got general. PSG, they got Milan, and they got Borussia Dortmund.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty ridiculous, honestly. And then who do we have? I mean, United's group's not easy.
Well, yeah, but United got the top heavy group, right? They got the group. They're probably not gonna win. But they're going to go through from it.
But I mean, they've got to travel to Denmark. They've got to travel to Turkey.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely a tougher group. Especially considering Copenhagen on November 8th. That's going to be cold.
Yep.
But I think it's one of them groups where Man United and Bayern are going to go through. And they get the glamour of the Bayern's high, but it does mean they're probably going to finish second. But I think they'll probably go through.
Yeah, I think they probably will too. We'll see. I mean, the club's in total disarray right now, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I would love it if they went out. I would absolutely love it. But I just feel like it's one of them groups. There's a couple of different types of groups, right, in the Champions League. You get that one, which is the top heavy. You get the 2 behemoths at the top, and then 2 kind of more also ranny type of teams that never really get through the group stage. You get the groups that we've got, which is kind of like, you've got 3 teams that are pretty much on a level, really. And like I said before, it's probably just going to be a bit of a slog. And then you get the group that Man City have got, which is just an absolute walkover. I mean, it was mad when that group was coming out. So they got whatever Red Star Belgrade are calling themselves these days. I noticed Joe Cole. Yeah, Joe Cole. Did you see Joe Cole? He wasn't even thinking about it. He pulled it out. He had a look at it and he went, Red Star Belgrade. So yeah, nothing against him for doing that. I'd have done the same thing. They got RB Leipzig and they got Young Boys. The only way Man City don't win 6 from 6 in this is if Pep does decide to rest everybody at some point, because this is the 3rd type of Champions League group, and this is the walkover group.
Yeah, I mean, I think Leipzig could be tricky for them.
Don't they sell all their best players every single year though, and they've just done it again? And I don't think they were even particularly good last year, were they?
Well, let's see.
They definitely weren't in a title race because it was just Bayern.
Oh yeah, they weren't in a title race, but they're one of those clubs like Brighton who sell their best players every year, but then somehow get their replacements for like $1.5 million, and they're better than Moises Caicedo somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they weren't too bad. They finished with 66 points, which was only 5 off the top because it's only 34 games in the Bundesliga. So important to remember that. So 66 points sounds like we'd go, oh my God, you won't make top 4 in England with that. But I mean, it isn't a 34 game season.
That's true. Yeah.
But
yeah, I think City got the easiest group. But I'm curious who's our third? No, who's our fourth? It's
what in the
Newcastle. Never mind.
In the Man City group. Who's the fourth English team? You mean?
Yeah, I didn't. For some reason, I totally blinked on Newcastle. Yeah, I think the groups for Newcastle and United will help us. Probably guarantee top 4 because I mean they have pretty tough groups, but I think City's is like you said. I mean it's kind of a walkover group. So
yeah, well, the Man United's one is funny because I've already said there's like 2 behemoths, and I do expect them to go through, but they can't slip up, right? Because they can easily lose to Bayern twice, which means they cannot slip up against Galatasaray, really. So it puts a little bit of extra pressure, even though I think they'll win those other games. I think it puts a little bit more pressure on it because they've got absolutely no room for error in those games because that Bayern are going to be charging right up to the top.
And I mean that's what we want, right? Like for an opposing team, I mean you want them to have to put out their best team over 6 games. I mean, not that I don't really feel particularly threatened from Man United, but
this was what I was going to say to you. I think if we are down there close to Man United, I think something's gone horribly wrong this season. I think there's a huge gap between us and Man United, and I don't see it. If we are around United, then this has been a bad season. I think because I think Liverpool are better than United. I think Liverpool will be better than United this season. That 4th place, I think the top 3 is going to be us, Man City and Liverpool. You can pick your order, but I think that will be the top 3, and I don't think it's going to be particularly close. That 4th place, I think that 4th place is wide open. Wide open.
I do too.
I mean, I'm not getting carried away because Spurs put 5 past relegation fodder. But they
are playing better though. They are
playing.
Yeah, they're playing a lot better.
I think with that 4th place being as open as it is, Newcastle have not had a very good start to the season. West Ham are obviously going to fall away. You can't. If you look at their results, they've been so freaky. So they'll fall away.
What about Villa? Villa's been a bit of a surprise for me.
You know what though? Unai Emery away.
Yep.
Look at their results. Unai Emery away. They got thumped at Newcastle. Where did they lose that last week away from home?
I'm pulling them up right now. They lost to Liverpool last game.
Okay, Liverpool.
3-0.
So Unai Emery away from home, we know what that's like. We've been through that. I mean, was it at Villarreal? We had the season where he got to the semi-final of the Champions League, but they didn't win a single game away from home in the league as well as in the Champions League. This is away from home Unai. So I don't think Villa are going to be in contention for that because I don't think you can lose every away game of being in contention for the top 4.
The stats are pretty bad.
Exactly.
17 versus 9 shots, 4 versus 3 on target. That's not that bad. But possession, 64 versus 36.
Yeah, I mean they are.
Liverpool's not the beast they were.
No, but that Villa are going to be exactly who we think they're going to be. They're going to win some games at home and they're going to lose a lot of games away. And it's probably going to be enough to get them somewhere in the top 8. But I doubt it's going to be anywhere near the top 4.
That's fair.
Brighton have started well. I mean, I didn't think Brighton were going to have a particularly good season, but other than the absolute smash and grab that West Ham did on them when I think they had 83% possession or something like that. Other than that, Brighton have started well. I think they look pretty good. So yeah, that 4th place I think is wide open for that Champions League spot.
But you want to talk about Chelsea for a second? I feel like that's the only club we haven't really talked about. So I'm going to be honest, I haven't really seen them much this year so far.
I've seen all their games this year. They're a 12th place team that are playing like a 12th place team that are probably going to end up in 12th. I just don't think they're very good. That Nico Jackson that they've signed up front, he is awful player. I don't see how they can continue with him for much longer. I know they've got 155 players to come back in, but I don't think they're very good, really. I don't think their goalkeeper that they've signed is very good. I don't think their backline is very good. All the hype around Enzo, I don't get it. He's fine. I don't think he's a bad player, but I don't think he's some magical. Look, he's not a mythical beast because he was in the team all last season and they finished 12th. And he's in the team now playing every minute. And where are they right now? Oh, 12th.
It's so crazy to me, Gav. And I mean, I know all the podcasts are harping on this, but I feel like we have to say it again, right? They've spent over £1 billion, and I'm looking at the lineup right now. They still have Conor Gallagher starting in central midfield.
Look, this is what I said to you guys when we were doing the season preview pod, right? What they've tried to do is they've tried to cut Brighton out of the market, right? They've tried to sign these players before they went to Brighton. The problem is that most of these players that Brighton sign do not work, but you don't hear about it, right? They're given, and some of them take time. You are not going to be given the time at Chelsea that you are given at Brighton. So it's going to foul. It can't not foul. Half of these players are going to be massive flops. Because they're Chelsea, they're overpaying for them in the first place, because the same with us. Brighton knock on a door and ask for a player. It's a different price to Arsenal, Chelsea, Man United, anyone else, like a big club knocking on the door and asking for a player. It's a different price. So Chelsea are paying top dollar for these players, most of whom won't work out, because that's how this works. You buy a load of players, some will work, some won't. And when Brighton do this, they do it and then they sell them on for 100 million. If Chelsea get a good player, they ain't going to want to sell them on. So I just think this strategy is so flawed. There is a reason that we allow teams like Brighton to buy people like Moises Caicedo, and then we pay a ton of money for them. It's because the 15 players that they missed on in between, we don't hear about.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and something a lot of people don't take into consideration. And I agree with you 100%. I think that's what Chelsea is trying to do is cut, clubs like Brighton out.
I think he's kind of thinking, and the thing is, I think they've got incredibly lucky this summer, right? We massively overpaid for Kai Havertz. Man United massively overpaid for Mason Mount. And Newcastle massively overpaid for Lewis Hall. And I do not understand why we all keep bailing them out. I just don't get it. I don't get why clubs don't just look at each other and say, you know what, just leave them alone. Just don't do it.
Let them sink.
Yeah, let them sink. But we don't. We keep overpaying for these players. And then they had the Saudi thing where, I know, 3 or 4 players went to Saudi for inflated fees. And that's really what's kept them alive. And that's what saved them. I don't get how they keep getting people to overpay for their players when we can't get more than £1 million out of Crystal Palace for Rob Holding. I don't understand it. But that's clearly, Bowley is clearly banking on these transfer fees going up and up and up. And he thinks even though Nico Jackson is absolute dog shit, they paid 35 million for him and someone's going to give him 70 million in 3 years' time when he don't want him anymore. And quite frankly, I don't blame him for thinking that, because ever since he's been here, that has been what's happened.
The interesting thing to me with Chelsea is these contract lengths. So I understood it at first, right? Because they were able to amortize over.
You still can, because the Premier League hasn't. Chelsea ain't in Europe, right? So they haven't got to worry about European FFP because they're not in it. Now, next year it could become an issue, but for right now they're not in it, so it doesn't matter. The Premier League have not closed this loophole. Only only UEFA did. The Premier League have not. So Chelsea doing these contracts still amortize over that amount of time in the Premier League.
Well, I mean, that kind of changes everything then. Never mind. I mean, then that makes a lot of sense.
But if they qualify for the Champions League, though, I don't know how it works when they get into the Champions League, because I don't think they would have passed this year, even with the amount of players they sold with that, because, again, they can't spread it over 8 and 9 years. It's a maximum of 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is going to be what starts to happen with their flops, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah, 100%, 100%. This whole project is going to depend on them needing clubs like us to pay 60 and 70 million quid for players they don't want.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mudrik's. I think it's too early to call him. Oh, he's been a flop, but I think it's too early to call him a flop overall. But like, what are they going to do? He's on an 8-year contract on big wages.
They're going to call Edu and sell him to us for 85 million.
They probably will, to be honest. Yeah,
that is obviously what they are hoping is going to keep happening. And and every time we say it can't happen, there you go, man. You have paid 55 million for Mason Mount. We've paid 65 million for Havertz. Newcastle paid 35 million for a left back. I saw him 5 or 6 times last season. My God, he looked awful. So far out of his depth. They've given 35 million. We can't get more than a 1.5 million loan fee for Kieran Tierney. So I don't know what it is they sprinkle on the sprinkle around the place at Stamford Bridge, but whatever it is, it's been working for them.
It's crack, Gav.
It must be. It must be. But on the pitch though, I don't think that's going to help them, because I think these players, I think most of them are going to flop because the law of averages says that they're going to flop, and you can't recover from that. I understand that financially they think they can get big money back for these players. I don't think that's going to help them with results. That's why I think they're a mid-table team that are going to finish mid-table again.
I mean, they're still leaning on 39-year-old Thiago Silva.
Yeah.
38. Sorry.
Yeah. So I don't see much in them. So yeah, and I don't think there's anyone else in contention that's worth discussing, right? I don't see anyone else staying up there. I mean, I don't see Brentford being a threat towards the top or anything like that.
Well, we'll do a Spurs review before the NLD, which is pretty soon, actually. But
yeah, we'll preview. Yeah. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, no point talking about them now.
They'll have lost a couple of games before then as well, so the mood will have completely changed. And I'm more than happy for that, because I can't be bothered talking about them. I mean, they beat a couple of relegation candidates, and all of a sudden they're the best team in the world again.
That's how it always works every season.
I know, it's a bizarre thing with them. It really is a bizarre thing.
And Gav, I don't know if you knew this, but Son, he's back.
Oh, he's absolutely back. Best player in the world. It is madness. But we will cover that when we do the Spurs preview. We'll go into a bit of depth on why this can't last for them, which is good. But hopefully they'll have lost a couple of games in between. So, all right, mate. Well, thank you very much for coming on this morning. We will see you towards the end of next week when we'll do the preview for the Everton game, because we all cannot wait for another trip to Goodison, right?
Right. Yeah. Hopefully that lazy bastard Pascal is back.
Yeah. I'm sure he'll be back for then. So, okay, mate. All right. Well, I will see you later. Have a good weekend, and everybody at home, we will see you towards the end of the week. Goodbye.
Goodbye.